everybody. Welcome to Studio Classroom Worldwide. Thanks for joining us today and studying with us. We certainly appreciate that. My name is Steve. Well, today we find ourselves at the end of another year. It's a good time to stop and reflect on the successes of the past and make a few predictions about the future. And that's what we'll be doing today, but with a little twist. Today we'll look back in time at some successful methods, mechanisms, and devices that were predicted in science fiction novels years before they became a reality. In other words, instances in history when fiction became nonfiction. Let's open our magazines now to page 52 and start reading Science Nonfiction.
Science nonfiction. Way out dreams sometimes become reality. Many technologies that seem commonplace today appeared miraculous when they first appeared on the scene. The creative minds behind these amazing inventions were not only scientists, however. In many cases, they were writers of science fiction. These literary masters conceived of some incredible innovations way before their time. Examples of current technologies that were once science fiction are not hard to find. Cell phones are now everywhere. Long before they became an indispensable communications device, they were foreshadowed by the communicator, which looked like a flip phone on the TV show Star Trek in the 1960s.
Hello friends, thank you so much for joining us right here in the studio. My name is Kayla.
And my name is Ryan. Now friends, we are looking at a science fiction article today. And so first, let's talk about what science fiction is.
Well, science fiction is a genre that we consider to be a futuristic. It's coming from the future, and it's made up things, maybe things we don't think will exist.
Yeah, but we try to make it look like they could. But this article today is called Science Nonfiction.
Now, nonfiction, when you put non in front of it, means it's real. It's no longer fictional. So this is real science. Today we're looking at way out dreams that sometimes become reality.
Okay, if something is way out, that means it probably couldn't happen. Now, many technologies that seem commonplace today actually appeared miraculous when they first appeared on the scene.
That's true. Technology today is incredible, and we think of it as just being commonplace. Commonplace meaning it's part of everyday life. It's not special.
Exactly. But before they are now commonplace, they were seemingly miraculous. And something that is miraculous means it happens through a miracle. It's performed or involving something that needs an extra power.
That's right. It's supernatural or amazing. It's something you didn't think could exist. It's miraculous. Well, the creative minds behind these amazing inventions were not only scientists.
That's right. We usually think that all of our technology comes from scientists. But in many cases, the ideas for these came from writers of science fiction.
Now, these literary masters conceived some of the most incredible innovations way before their time.
All right, now we're calling them literary masters. The word literary means writing.
That's right. They were amazing, and they thought of these new, incredible, fantastic innovations long before they ever existed.
All right. Now, you've heard the word invention. That is something new that people make. And innovation is something new that is very different that is introduced.
That's right. These are things that they had never thought of before, and these writers created them thinking, wow, where did these come from? They came from someone's imagination.
So basically, Kayla, we're talking about things like smartphones and computers. All of this used to not exist and was just a dream in science fiction.
Well, we're going to look at some examples because it goes even beyond just our modern technology. Examples of current technologies that were once only science fictions are not hard to find.
Okay, so there are some technologies that were just science fiction, and now they're everywhere. They are not hard to find.
That's right. There are many different ones that were thought to be just made up. For example, cell phones. They're now everywhere.
That's right. Cell phones used to not exist, and even when they were just beginning, they were very expensive and rare. But now they're everywhere.
Well, long before they became an indispensable communication device, indispensable means something we could not live without. Now we think of them as we have to have them. Before that, they were actually foreshadowed by the communicator.
That's right, and the communicator comes from Star Trek. Now, they foreshadowed this device. They foreshadowed cell phones.
Now, to foreshadow means to show or indicate that something will happen. So the communicator, which looked kind of like a flip phone, was on the TV show Star Trek. It looks just like a phone. It was kind of what might be coming in the future, and now that we have the cell phone, we see it was foreshadowed.
Exactly. Now, this show, Star Trek, came out in the 1960s with the communicator, which looked kind of like a flip phone. Now, in the 60s is when this came out. Cell phones weren't popular until the 90s.
That's right, and even then they were still expensive. So this was a foreshadowing, something that came from science fiction that we use every day now. Well, there's plenty more examples to look at, so join us after we visit the chat room.
Hi, Ken. Anything good in the news today?
Oh, I'm not reading the news. I'm doing some research on the web after reading this book.
The history of rap music? I didn't know you liked rap music.
Well, it's not my favorite style, but the history seems interesting.
So what exactly are you looking up then?
Actually, I have an English question. And since you're here, I can just ask you.
Okay, shoot.
Well, the author begins by saying, ever since rap music first came on the scene. But I'm confused. Which scene is he talking about?
Oh, in that sentence, he's talking about the music scene. But being on the scene can simply refer to somebody arriving at a certain place.
Okay, so can you tell me where the music scene is?
It's not a specific place, Ken, but it's a particular area of activity, music, and all of the musicians and things associated with it. Within the overall music scene, you would have the rap scene, the pop scene, and many others.
Oh, that makes sense. But you said scenes can refer to places, right?
It's true, a scene can be a place, but it's usually a place where something bad has happened, like a crime scene or a disaster scene.
Oh, really? Well, in that case, I like a change of scene.
Hey, nice use of the idiom, Ken. If somebody wants a change of scene, they're bored with their current life and want to try something new.
That's funny. I didn't know that idiom, but I suppose that's why I picked up this book on rap. I wanted to try something new.
Why not? Well, hey, let me know how you like it.
Will do. Scene 这个字有诸多的含义，它可以指某件事的现场，比如说 the scene of an accident 意外事件的现场 the scene of the crime 犯罪现场 the police arrived quickly on the scene 警方迅速赶到现场。今天的课文讲到 many technologies that seem commonplace today appeared miraculous when they first appeared on the scene。许多现在看来普通的科技在首次出现时似乎是不可思议的。如果在 scene 的前面加上定冠词，再加上一个修饰语，就表示某一个界，像 the music scene 音乐界 the rock scene 摇滚乐界 the pop scene 流行音乐界。另外片语 a change of scene 表示换个环境，改变步调。如果你对都市生活感到厌倦，你可以来一个 change of scene， 搬到乡下，换个环境。我们下次图书馆见。
Welcome back from the break. Consider this prediction made back in 1968. In a few milliseconds, you will read the headlines of any newspaper you please. The text will be automatically updated every hour, and you could spend your lifetime doing nothing but absorbing an ever-changing flow of information. Sound familiar? Wow, this forecast was written by Arthur C. Clarke back in 1968. And Arthur C. Clarke is a man we'll hear more from again in a moment. Right now, let's look at more science fiction predictions that came true on line 9.
Science nonfiction. The Internet was envisioned by Mark Twain in 1898. Credit cards? Predicted by Edward Bellamy in 1888. Satellites? Written about by Arthur C. Clarke in 1945. Military weaponry like submarines, tanks, and atomic bombs appeared in novels by Jules Verne, 1869, and H.G. Wells, 1903 and 1914. Lunar exploration was visualized by Johannes Kepler as far back as 1634. So what does this suggest for the future? The bizarre fantasies of today's science fiction writers may one day be accepted as normal devices. Already we are seeing developments like flying cars, real-time language translation, and even thought-controlled computers. The future is becoming now faster than ever before.
All right, friends, we are looking at how some of the technology that we use today was once only dreamed.
That's right, we looked at cell phones. Now let's look at the Internet. The Internet was envisioned by Mark Twain in 1898.
Wow. Now, something that is envisioned is thought of in your head, usually of something that will happen in the future.
Now remember, friends, we're looking at things that come from science fiction back in their time. So in 1898, the Internet was a science fiction piece, something we could never have imagined.
Yeah, it definitely did not exist for almost 100 years. Now, what about credit cards?
Well, credit cards? They were predicted by Edward Bellamy in 1888.
Wow, so early. All right, what about satellites, which are objects that float in space?
Well, satellites were written about by Arthur C. Clarke in 1945. Now, these are all famous authors, and you could look at their books and find out where they come from. We'll have more information on this, so let's visit Liz with Grammar on the Go.
Hi there, friends. My name is Liz, and it's time for Grammar on the Go. For today's grammar tip, let's take a look at the following sentences. Credit cards? Predicted by Edward Bellamy in 1888. Normally, a sentence should tell you who or what is doing something. In other words, a sentence should have a subject and a verb. But here, our first sentence has a subject with no verb. And then the second sentence has no subject, but a verb. What's going on here? Okay, let's begin with credit cards. In this case, it is understood that the writer is asking, what about credit cards? The answer is in the following sentence. Predicted by Edward Bellamy in 1888. In other words, credit cards were predicted by Edward Bellamy in 1888. The writer continues on with the following. Satellites, written about by Arthur C. Clarke in 1945. Again, the writer's doing the same thing as he did with the previous sentences. The sentences are like this because the writer is using a creative style and not an academic style to communicate. The writer mentions how current technologies that were once science fiction are not hard to find, and then he gives several examples. If he had used traditional sentence patterns, his list of examples might appear dry to the readers. Instead, he uses a style that sounds like he is talking rather than giving a formal report. And when a person is talking, they don't always use complete sentences. This is the beauty of creative writing. You can play around with the language. The more you know the language, the more you can play with it. And that's it for today. This is Liz with Grammar on the Go, signing off. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Liz. Now let's look at military weaponry like submarines, tanks, and atomic bombs.
Okay, now military weaponry. Weaponry refers to weapons or weapon-like instruments that you use in warfare.
Okay, so submarines are vehicles that drive under the water. Tanks are very large and strong vehicles that drive on the land. And atomic bombs are some of the biggest and most dangerous bombs in the world.
Well, these all appeared in novels by Jules Verne in 1869 and H.G. Wells in 1903 and 1914, predicted by two different authors in completely different time periods.
Wow, okay. Now, lunar exploration, which means exploring the moon, was visualized by Johannes Kepler as far back as 1634.
That's absolutely incredible to visualize something that early on. Now, to visualize means to form a mental picture of or to imagine it. Now, Johannes Kepler actually had this written in his work as far back as 1634.
Okay, many hundreds of years ago. In fact, probably about 200 or 300 years, 400 years before it actually was possible.
That's right, long before. Well, friends, if you look in your magazines, you can see a list of authors on page 53 that shows you the author, the year they predicted it, and the book or literary work it showed up in.
Okay, so what does all of this suggest for the future now?
Well, the bizarre fantasies of today's science fiction writers may one day be accepted as normal devices.
That's right. Already, we're seeing developments like flying cars, real-time language translation, and even thought-controlled computers.
Now, real-time language translation means it is translated as you speak at the exact same time. It doesn't take a long time. No one has to work it out. That would be incredible.
Yeah. So really, we're seeing here that the science fiction future is becoming now faster than ever before.
That's right. It's becoming more and more real. Well, friends, this brings us to the end of December 31st, 2012, which is the end of our year. So we would like to wish you a very happy new year. And we would like to thank you. Next year, Studio Classroom will be bringing you an entirely new show with new teachers. My name is Kayla, and I've had a wonderful time the last 2 years learning with you. Thank you so much for being my friend.
And me too. I'm really looking forward to the show next year. But friends, I'm going to miss you. We've had a wonderful time teaching you on this show, learning new things with you, and we look forward to the time that we get to see you again.
That's right, but stay with Studio Classroom, new teachers, and a brand new show coming your way at the very beginning of next year. Stay in touch with Studio Classroom via the internet at letters@studioclassroom.com. And as always, you can find us on Facebook. Friends, thank you so much for joining us. Have a wonderful new year.
All right, so stick around for this skit. And now it's time for Kayla and I to say goodbye.
Bye, friends.
This one here? Yes, this will be very useful.
Hello, Dr. Inventor. Are you working on your next invention?
Yes, I am.
What will your next invention be?
Oh, I am looking for ideas in these old science fiction books.
Ideas from science fiction?
Yes, why not? The creative minds behind inventions are not always scientists. Huh?
Really?
Literary masters conceived some incredible innovations way before that time.
Oh, so you're looking for new, old inventions?
Yes, and they are not hard to find. Look, Star Trek talks about a communication device. Maybe I'll invent that.
That's kind of like a cell phone, isn't it?
Yes, it does. Well, I'll keep looking. Aha! Mark Twain talks about connecting people from all over.
Oh, kind of like the internet.
Exactly, like the internet. What else is there? How about using something instead of money? Maybe some type of plastic.
Credit cards.
Right. Well, there has to be something here. Rays that bounce through space and around the world.
Satellites.
Underwater ships.
Submarines.
Vehicles that explore the moon.
Moon rovers. Mr. Inventor, you're too late.
The future is already here.
Hi everyone, I'm Michelle. 这篇文章的第一个重点，我们看 miraculous 这个形容词。注意它的重音是在 ra 这个音节念成 miraculous。miraculous 是指神奇的或不可思议的。例如 ，the fairy used her miraculous power to save the princess。这位仙子使用她神奇的力量救了公主。miraculous 也指惊人的，例如 ，the basketball team's miraculous victory made the headline news tonight。这支篮球队令人无法相信的胜利，成为今天晚上的头条新闻。至于我们看的是 foreshadow 这个动词 ，F-O-R-E 这个字首有指之前的意思，所以 foreshadow 是指成为某件事要来临前的预兆。例如 ，the long-term decline of the stock market foreshadowed a serious global depression。股票市场长期的下跌预告着全球性的经济萧条即将发生。或者是 the lack of rain last winter foreshadowed this year's drought。去年冬季的缺乏雨水预告今年会干旱。最后我们看的是 visualize 这个动词，我们看到这个字里面有 visual 视觉的这个形容词，所以动词 visualize 是指是形象化或者是想象。例如 I can visualize what my dream house would look like。我可以想象我梦想中的房子的模样。或者是 I can visualize myself working as a professional lawyer。我可以想象自己以后成为一位专业律师的样子。And I can visualize all of you speaking English fluently one day. I'll see you then. Bye bye.
The creative minds of science fiction authors have written about many modern technologies long before they were invented, like robots, cell phones, and automatic doors. But they didn't get everything right. In the year 1900, one author predicted things like digital color photography and high-speed rail systems, two things that have come to pass. In the same article, though, he predicted other things like no more mosquitoes and flies, and no more letters C, X, or Q in the English alphabet. Well, you can't win them all. Friends, have a safe and happy New Year. We'll see you next year tomorrow. Bye-bye.
At Studio Classroom, you'll find a way to broaden your mind. This class is perfect for me and my vocabulary. Make a friend for life. Make us your friend for life. At Studio Classroom Worldwide. Your friend for life. Make a friend for life. Make us your friend for life. At Studio Classroom Worldwide. Studio Classroom Worldwide.